let's take a look at our top selections.
Everybody, Mike Beer here with the second of two Stallion Series races for the New York Breds on Sundays. Aqueduct card. Race number 9 is the Staten Island division. This is for the fillies. They are going to sprint 7 furlongs on the main track, $100,000 purse. Let's take a look at this field. 7 fillies and mares entered in this race. A clear-cut morning line here in the form of number 5, Prairie Fire, who just, shows up here with all of the recent figures anyway. Her last 3 races or so are just a little bit faster than what many of her rivals here have been running as of late. If she shows up and runs, one of those recent races in here, it does feel like she's found a pretty good spot in this race. But overall, it's not like she's some kind of a superstar. So it's not like she absolutely has to win this race. You can see the number 3, Officer Hutchy, who also has a couple of recent speed figures that are going to give her a real look in this race. Officer Hutchy, in 2 of her last 3 starts, has earned buyers in the low 80s. That's going to give her a chance in this race. She is racing right now for trainer Rob Atras, who claimed her for $25,000 over the summer. And Officer Hutchy has run very well for Atras, and Rob has, just been on a pretty good run lately. He's had a couple of big priced winners in recent days here at Aqueduct. So Officer Hutchy is certainly a horse that you want to take seriously. The other horses in here feel like they've got some improving to do. Number 1, Espresso Shot, never really has gotten over the hump after a pretty good start to her career, but she's a pretty good fit in this race. We'll see if the 7 furlongs helps her out. It feels like she's not that far off of these horses. It's just been a long time since she's won a race, but she is a horse who is certainly of some interest in this field. Anyway, let's see how things play out for her as she breaks from the rail. Let's take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector first, because this could have a say in the outcome of the race. They expect number 7, Sadie Lady, to get out there on the early lead in this spot. It's pretty difficult to argue with. Sadie Lady, if nothing else, is a speed horse. She spent the early part of her career racing on turf, and she actually ran on turf with some success throughout 2019 as a turf sprinter. They came back to dirt at the end of last year. Her final start of 2019 was a dirt race because she got rained off the turf. And while she didn't run well that day, after that, it felt like she really sort of turned her career around a little bit as a dirt sprinter. She ran 3 times at Aqueduct over 6 furlongs in her first 3 starts this year in 2020, in January, February, and March. And she won all 3 of those races, and in 2 of those, earned by her speed figures, they're going to make her very competitive in a race like this. And she won all 3 of those races while using her early speed to her advantage. So those are the kind of races I think you can go back to and feel like, you know what, they give her a little bit of a chance in this race. She was pretty badly affected, however, by the pandemic. Racing stopped in the middle of March here in New York. They didn't come back until June. And when Sadie Lady came back off of that layoff, she just didn't quite seem like maybe she was the same kind of horse. She's run twice since racing started back, had the lead in both of those races, but just wasn't good enough at the end, could not get away from those fields, and wound up fading through the stretch. And she didn't come close to her best figures in those races either. So that's a little bit of a concern. Those races, however, the last 2 races were against open company. She's back in with New York Breds here. She has speed from the outside. I would be a little concerned about the 7 furlongs for her, but if she gets away soft on the early lead, she has some races that are going to make her a real player in this race. So, I wouldn't just totally dismiss her in this race. Let's move down towards the inside. Talk about Espresso Shot first. She's the number 1 in this race. She's 4-1 on the morning line. I think Espresso Shot has a real shot in this race. She was a filly who got off to a really promising start to her career. She won her first ever dirt start. She got rained off the turf early in her career and won that race, going a mile and a 16th at Belmont Park. After that, she ran second in the Key Sense, and then she came back and won the Eastview and the Busher in succession early on in her career. Both of those races at Aqueduct, by the way, over a 1-turn mile. And she just looked really good winning those. It felt like she had a real chance to turn out to be a rock-solid New York bred. And unfortunately for her, things just, haven't gotten better since then. She has not won a race since the Busher back in March of 2019. So she's, on a little bit of a long, dry spell here. She's run certainly okay at times, but hasn't really improved her speed figures and just hasn't quite gotten there in any of her races yet. And it's not like she's been, right there at the end of these races either. She really hasn't been all that competitive. I thought, all in all, we're going to take a look at the Iroquois in a little bit. That's her most recent race. She ran okay in that race. That was going 6.5 furlongs. Now she gets to go 7. Maybe the just slight added distance of this race will help her. I do think she's a player in here. I ultimately couldn't really talk myself into her. Let's take a look at number 2, Banker's Daughter. This horse is going to be a little bit bigger price in this race. Feels like she is coming around for trainer Mike Maselli, improving. Finally got the maiden win 3 starts back at Saratoga. Came back in her next start and just missed running second. And then we came back with this race here. We're going to take a look at her most recent start. This is on November 1st at Belmont Park. It's over a sloppy track. I like this performance from her, mostly because she was up there, part of this 5-horse scrum for the lead around the turn, contesting it. You see she emerged with the lead at the top of the stretch, driving to hold on all the way down to the end of this race, still there very late and just can't stop the winner closing at the end, settles for second best. All in all, I thought this was a good effort. I would like her more if she didn't have her race 2 back on her PPs. She was second again in that race with a career best 73 by her. I just didn't see the excuse for her not to win that day. She had a clear lead in the stretch. She got run down by Fight on Lucy, another horse who's back in this race. Fight on Lucy was the longest shot on the board that day, September 19th, and I just didn't see the excuse for Banker's Daughter not to win that day. I do think she's improved. At a price, she was one of the horses I think you might want to consider, especially if she does, go off at around that 12-1 morning line. Boy, that race 2 back, though, just, really kind of turned me off to her. And it made me not really want to play her in this race. The next couple horses we're going to talk about are the horses that we mentioned in the Open. The number 3, Officer Hutchy for Rob Atras, and the number 5, Prairie Fire, who's the morning line favorite. And I think they're 2 of the major players in this race. I want to take a look at their most recent race. This is the Iroquois on October 24th at Belmont Park, going 6.5 furlongs. And Prairie Fire is going to run a good second in this race. Now, this is a race that ultimately goes to closers. Prairie Fire was way back off the pace early. And the winner of the race, Collegeville Girl, who was a 23-1 long shot in this race, was actually last early and the only horse behind Prairie Fire early. And they're both going to make runs through the stretch of this race to run 1-2. Prairie Fire down towards the inside, while Collegeville Girl comes down the outside in the clear. But overall, Prairie Fire got a clean run in this race. Alters over to the rail late, but has room down there and is very game to the end. She just gets out finished when all is said and done. Officer Hutchy, you saw back there in 4th. Espresso Shot wound up finishing 5th. Officer Hutchy got a great trip in that race, and she just wasn't quite good enough at the end. That concerns me about her. I respect her recent form. I respect the races that the runners out of the Rob Atras barn are running lately. But I just don't know if I think Officer Hutchy is good enough to beat this field, and it's not like she's some kind of interesting price on the morning line at 2-1. I don't really want to be betting her at that price. I would, just ultimately rather have Prairie Fire, I guess. We can put the picks up there now because that's where I'm going on top. I have Prairie Fire there. I really thought about putting Espresso Shot on top, and if for some reason she just gets totally overlooked in the wagering here, I could certainly see switching over and betting her at the right kind of price. We'll see how it all shakes out. But I'm just going to take Prairie Fire on top. I just think she's very logical, in really good form right now. The 7 furlongs feels like a distance that's going to be fine for her. I realize that she's the favorite in here, and that's no great shakes. But I just wanted her on top. I felt most comfortable just taking her. It feels like she's found, if nothing else, the right field this time. I went 5-1, 2-3 here in the Staten Island division of the New York Stallion Series on Sunday at Aqueduct. This one's going as race number 9. The approximate post time is 3:45 Eastern Time. Good luck.